Yes. Yeah, you'll log in on your machine too.
Yeah, it's gonna take me a minute, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, go down to the. There's water. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's just.
All right, we have to be right online. I think we have everybody's logged in. Good. Okay. Thank you for coming. I'm Jim Morgan. Just to email me, I think Wheaton Basin's transportation planner leading the project here. This is our third meeting. Good bit for the group to talk about. The first two meetings were kind of where we were going to go. I think this time we had a lot of good things to talk about what we learned. So look at so just to make sure everybody knows who everybody is, we're going to do introductions.
Can I WSB? Getting most of the circle. Betty Wolfhard. I can't read those.
And it goes to Public Works, Andy Williams, City Council of Public Works.
Leland Jacobson, Pelham Planning Commission.
Tori will.
For those online, first of all, making sure that you guys hear this all right, and then, if so, I'll let you collectively as a group do introduction.
So Wayne Brown, Urban League of Nebraska.
Okay.
Lynn Dittmer, 712 Initiative.
Sorry, I'm Gabriel, Iowa DOT.
Larry Grant, Iowa DOT.
Any
Warren
others?
Stuckey, Metropolitan Area Planning Agency.
All right, well, if there are any others that join later, definitely look for all your online as well. We'll be in touch. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to our consultant team.
Okay, so we have a three-part agenda today. It's not at all equal. A lot of today's focus is gonna be on policy and process change, and I'm explaining what that is and why it matters. We're gonna go through a community engagement update and then this additional data analysis. Those will be fairly brief. Before I get into it though, I want to introduce a concept that I think will help us with the policy process change. It's something that I actually picked up at a company. It's called Safety Moment. The Safety Moment is a way to start the meeting in order to put safety first. So we're doing a safety action plan project. We're about everyone getting home safely all the time. So I happened to be driving the other day, Interstate 680, headed northbound. I got on the West Second Road entrance ramp, and I'm planning to go quite a way. I want to get left at least 2 lanes because we all know around that 5 o'clock time, I'm gonna hit that big back where they're trying to go. And as I'm starting to come up, I'm getting speed so I can be ready to know what to do. Checking my left lane, and I'm able to get over. I'm also noticing the guy in front. He's putting up some markers that have me a little bit concerned about either his attention or maybe just his level of aggression, or maybe just he doesn't know what this area is like. So I'm still planning to make one more lane change, but I'm a little bit worried about this guy. So I'm going to use defensive driving, and I'm going to leave just a little bit more lead space for this guy than maybe I would typically want. So I make my one more lane change, traffic starting to back up, and then lo and behold, as it's backing up on him, he makes a non-signalized, very aggressive maneuver into this lane next to me, before he notices that I was there in his blind spot. So because I left that extra space, I was able to keep myself out of that situation. That could have been a very serious crash. Got run into to the side and sent into our wall over to the left. So defensive traffic. I mean, just leave yourself a little bit of extra space. You don't need to be riding the guy in front of you as much as possible. It's good to identify risks ahead of time. And none of that is possible to do after you've already decided to leave yourself open. So that's the safety moment for today. It's going to tie into what we're doing in policy process change. But before I go too far, I need everybody to give me input the most technologically heavyweight possible. I need your cell phone or your laptop so that we can use Mentimeter in order to get feedback from a wide range of folks in the room and online. This is QR code that you need in order to get over to Mentimeter and get it myself so I can make sure that I see the questions the same as you. Just have a QR code. Questions as we work on So. You need the code, it's 7893. So now we're gonna test to see if we're able to advance this slide and get everyone to the first question.
Okay, this is good. Nice.
Which way?
You do that next.
Yes, the axis will be in the top center here. This side is the five. So. Five. In spaces. D. Sorry, I can't help you. So which tab, Kristen? Yeah, so we'll get back over here.
Just no, I got you.
It's already a good time.
Which is an important question, because what is your favorite dessert? It's thinking. Well,
We do know that the cheesecake.
okay,
Is and. We know it works, we'll let that go, and then we can the next.
do it. All right.
You guys make sure to speak up, it sounds like.
Okay. We will keep it up. So policy process change. Now that we know how to use the tools, we're going to get you guys into two parts to what we've done today. First part is we're going to talk through what is it? It's policy process change. And with that, I'm throwing a little why is it important. And then we're going to talk about how do we use the safety committee as an advisory board to decide what policy process changes are recommended in this safety action. So this is probably a familiar slide. This is the safe system approach. Safe system approach is a philosophy that helps us to focus on principles, certain core elements that are going to help us to have layers of decision-making and strategies that are going to lead to safer. So when we start to talk about, how we're going to approach safety, it's not just we're going to do safety things. It's we're going to focus on safer people, safer vehicles, safer speeds. with that, we're going to have items shown just a little bit all the lines in the system. The other reason why we do a policy and process review is because, as we've seen communities put together these comprehensive safety plans, there's been a standard way of developing them. This has become a standard component of the safe streets and roads overall program. So we're going to look at assessment of current policies, plans, guidelines, and standards to identify opportunities in order to improve them. Then the action plan will just say on this road, way to safety treated, but we're going to actually incorporate the changes we need to make as safety professionals in order to take a safety process. How are we going to drive this through decisions we make in temporary?
John, on this stuff. So last week, the VOC and Matt went up with leaders, planners, and engineers and other folks from each of the jurisdictions, and we talked a lot about this. This is kind of part of that process. As John said, it is one of the requirements. Yeah. And this is one way we can tailor that safety planning for the community. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to us and what we were.
So how do we make sure that we're doing a policy and process change review process? Well, one of the first things that we need to do is we need to make sure that the institutional documents that we rely on, in terms of our governments, city and county level, that they consistently affirm safety and talk about safety in a way that's consistent, right? So we go through essentially, kind of an architect process, going through these types of things. It can be, as broad as the comprehensive plan can be, as we look through all of the communities, we've done this for everyone, because that's how the process is set up, to plans that are maybe a little bit more off the typical for safety, transport master plans, master B assessments for new development. So all of these can have an appropriate discussion of safety, but if we tailor what's in these documents about reducing the odds of serious injuries and practically to those folks, we can increase the amount of people who are looking out for safety and taking safety actions significantly, right? And we can make it less of a, well, if I value safety with my time, it's more of a, we all value safety. Your time is spent doing this. You're going to spend through a process that includes this process. So we've done this assessment. There's a very boring table that shows which documents we found and checked to make sure that we're not missing anything because they weren't. Then what we did was we took those assessments and we put them into what's called benchmarking assessment tool. This came from the Highway Administration and its partners. Matt was fortunate to be part of a medium-sized communities group that met with some experts in safe system approach and activities at the NPO level. That workshop was fairly recent, so we're still kind of working in what Matt has learned by going through that back into our process. But, up to 50 actions that can be taken, things like what's written into your, your core values in your TP about safety. Have you made a formal proclamation that, you're adopting visions here? Does your tip or LRTP have a scoring component that evaluates safety? We went through about 50 of those, and they were all graded on this sort of scale. Not initiated practice, implemented practice, institutional practice. So growing levels of also growing levels that show that it's likely to hit every practice. Oh, that's okay. All right, just one moment. Okay, let's see how I do that. The meeting. Back to Sienna, Lindsay. Perfect. Okay. So we completed this assessment. It's just now gone through an approval with Metho, so it's going to be good to share. It's not really worth it to talk about 50 rated levels, but what we've done here is we've basically given you a summary. Most things are just in that initiate stage. That's not surprising. Right? We're doing our first comprehensive safety action. The goal is to have a way to continue to put that top of mind that we need to reach out. Are we making steps? Have we taken something from being, an initial practice to an institute practice? So those are the things that we are setting up as we move forward. Again, we're on there really, so it's not moving white to where we're seeing a lot of this really deep color that says institutional practices. So why? I mean, this sounds like a lot of minutia, unless you're in, very policy heavy part of the workforce. So we got to get back to the heart. Why is this a hard issue? Why do we decide to do this? And it's because of that safe system approach again, but it's really because of these different layers of redundancy. So if we aren't taking the right steps, when it comes to, safe road users, and we aren't doing the right things with the safe roads or safe speeds, we're basically leaving a big giant hole in this Swiss cheese, right? And someone's not going to hit it every day because we all have some independent decision making and we might make safe decisions most of the time. But what if I wasn't being as attentive and I was on 680 then? And I've just been riding that guy's tail and accounted for what those conditions were. So those are the things we have to figure out how we can minimize the potential for kinetic energy and affecting the lines that's going to cause. This is one of those. A little bit closer, sure. All right. Yeah, no problem. So this is what we're getting here for, right? That's the work that we've done to understand where we are. It does a little bit of help shape where we want to go, but the other way that we help shape where we want to go is we get the community involved, and we ask you guys to help give us feedback. Obviously, there are a lot of other Vision Zero communities or others in the cohort practice doing comprehensive safety action plans right now. So as we think about what have they done well, that's maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of us, then we can share some of those findings with you guys. And then you tell us what's going to work here. What can we all agree to, knowing that this is the body that cares about safety in this area that's, enough that you guys are part of the safety committee. How are we going to make decisions that are going to change how we do our job to better influence safe outcomes? So we just try to put some framing around this to make it easier. So each one of these practices that I'm going to share from other communities is framed around one of the 8 core areas of a comprehensive safety action plan that's been proven to be a successful model. So I'm going to go to this next slide. And as we do that, I'm going to share a practice from somewhere else that's been working on this Vision Zero safety action plan journey. And then we're going to talk about, with the tool, the Mentimeter tool, what you guys think about that practice is going to be beneficial for mountains. So let's start with leadership commitment and goal setting. So again, this is something that is formally a part of the comprehensive safety action plan process, but why does it matter? Does anybody have any thoughts on why it matters?
want people to get home safely.
You want to be able to get home safe? Yeah. So the main thing is that if we don't have our leaders agreeing with us that this is a good use of time, that we focus on safety, that you're freed up from your other commitments to be here for this meeting, because tomorrow they decided that the new priority is everybody attends sustainability meetings, no more time to go to safety meetings, right? Then that top-down decision-making affects our ability and our capacity to work on this, right? Who else do leaders in your community affect? They affect you in your job. Who else? Yeah, budgets, there you go. So that's really where it comes to. We have to turn the attention, we have to turn the tide a little bit on what our leaders are saying, make sure that we've shared enough of why this matters, that they are on board. And then also we have to give them the right tactics or strategies in order to make the change. So in Kansas City, this is another Vision Zero community that's just to our south. And Mayor Lucas, he worked with his Vision Zero team. They wrote a letter. The letter was shared out to the community in an appropriate way so that folks understood that the mayor was, part of this. And then because they had mayoral support, they could work with the city council and pass a Vision Zero resolution, right? So that's another kind of potential step. And then with, his authority to designate times and places of different staff members and important priorities, he was able to say, we need to have this Vision Zero task force. Their staff time is important enough to do this on a regular basis. So, we found this to be true of, basically everywhere, but another one that the team suggested we include is San Jose, California. San Jose is just a kind of a different type or style of city. It's, one that the main thing that we're finding is that might resemble Omaha even a little bit better, even though it's not Midwestern for just some demographics. But I think the main thing that was given there as a kind of a huge opportunity was the director of transportation and the mayor coming together to start a slow down pledge. And then that's community seeing that as those top leaders were, sharing this message and living it out, they've begun to see actual decreases in fatalities and suicides. So it's these things that we can do to find that leading indicator. Our process gets better and it takes a little while, but then we eventually get to our results start to get better and fatalities and serious injuries. So that's the first area. And now we're going to try input in the more technological way. And I'm going to ask you, using Menti, can you help us by answering what do we need from leadership commitments to create momentum behind our goal of zero traffic fatalities? So.
Leadership, it's easy to understand when we're talking about Vision Zero for city, we're talking about the mayor, city council, but this is regional, so when you're saying leadership, who are you talking?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I mean, it's something that I'd probably ask Jim to reflect on a little bit. Who do you guys consider to be your leader, your mayoral, equivalent for the macro region?
So it's gone through the map of the directors, so that is a representative of members of the team. I would say for this question, it's the leadership of each town, city, county that's reflected in this. So it's everybody. Yeah.
Is that include like planning boards, or you see what I mean? Is it just mayor or?
Sure. The people that we're reaching out to now, ones that do the things that need to be done on the roads or manage, so we're reaching out to various stages and groups, law options, planning and public. But yeah, I think it would be that how that's part of the time. It's how we take this through. How does that resolution happen? Who needs to be on to someone? So it's city council and the mayor's going to sign it. That it absolutely is that planning because it has so much that's a policy change. So.
right? We're gonna give it just a little bit of time, we've got plenty of time, because this is literally just a series of this community's done it like this, it was effective. Now tell us some of your inputs, really fun. Now we're starting to get some results show up on here, so we've got, need people willing to make adjustments to enforcement priorities. Also design studies for our city roads and pedestrian areas. Consistency, leading by example, transparent prioritization, everyone should know state's priority. So I really appreciate this. This is, follow through. Follow through is huge, right? You know, it's very hard to make happen in the planning stage, but appreciate someone putting it in, because if we don't say it in the planning stage, then, you know, we're kind of misguided. It can't be a flash in the pan decision, otherwise it's just not going to work. All right. I don't know the way I have this, it's going to scroll through. We'll be able to see your answers after. So I think on this one where it's open like this, I'm going to give people just like 1 minute more, and then I'm going to move on. I did say I was going to move on, but actually I'm going to cheat and change my own direction on that. Anybody, now that you've written it out and you feel confident in what you said, that you want to share in the room what you said? Because honestly, I feel like we could use some talking. That's not just me. So.
I can talk.
Okay.
Yeah, like night at night or something.
Yeah. Awesome. Anyone else? Promise I won't write your name in. You said it if you don't want to. I mean, yeah, this is important. We can't put these in the report and they're not going to actually affect change, right? The consultant says, you shall do this. It's going to die as soon as the plan is done. There's no. Absolutely.
From my it's really easy, right? And seeing kind of the consequences of the same training. So I think that our leadership and those of us in public safety is really going to take that consistent messaging that we're on board and, you know, talking about how we're one of the few that has the ability to issue consequence for not following through the general delivery of public. So I think that initiatives and special campaigns for that stuff, but you know, in theory, it's always a really good idea to say, hey, more enforcement, but you know, we really, from our leadership, will need budgets and personnel to support those initiatives and to have that follow through. And then on the flip side, we in Norfolk County, we're obviously the largest, or fastest growing county in the state. So a lot of what I'm seeing on the day-to-day is the infrastructure isn't able to handle the. So I think that in that leadership with our counties and our cities, that's a bigger part of the conversation here. Is it's great to say we don't want any traffic fatalities, but we also need to be taking some meaningful steps to, you know, in that gap of time of roadway design takes time and things like that are what we can do to help mitigate that.
Yeah, really appreciate that. I'm gonna just make space really quick for if somebody on Zoom wanted to come off mute and contribute to what we need from leadership commitments.
Yeah, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so mine will be about some of the commitment to the design of roads, because like I work with the traffic and safety of the DOT, and I had a meeting with them yesterday, and they're talking about some of the road designs that we've been having, on the like contributing to the road crashes. So if they can commit themselves to the complete street policy, which serve as a like traffic calming too. For instance, if we have narrow roads within downtown with dedicated bike lanes with good sidewalks, because people like drivers think that other people will be biking, will be walking, they are very careful in driving within downtown. So if we can commit ourselves by committing funds into our road designs and also trying to invest more into active transportation, I think it's going to help to reduce like crashes within our cities. Yep.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna move us forward, but again, it's definitely my goal to kind of hear these things aloud in addition to just seeing them typed out. So that last one was very wide. So this one is narrow, but it's similar. So what other communities have found is that if we were to just assign a single person to be responsible, even if they were at the very top of the chain, they would struggle to be able to affect change in enough parts of an organization in order to create this sort of safe approach to decision making that we need. So communities like Minneapolis and Philadelphia, many others have developed a task force for planning structure. And so it is part of the requirements from the CSAP program or the SS program. So MAPA is going to have, their version of planning structure. And so with that, we wanted to see just the viewpoints of this group, right? How do you guys feel about these two different directions they went? So Minneapolis, they used a very similar planning structure to what we've been talking about here, right? They have a Vision Zero community or committee, that's this group, right? It's not constrained to those who own or operate roadways. It's pretty open, and in fact, public safety and education are important parts, right? Then there's a Vision Zero technical advisory committee. For them, technical basically means staff. For MAPA, probably means folks who are part of TTEC because they have been identified as technical experts in engineering. And then the last bit is a Vision Zero task force, and that is at a little bit higher level, right? So it's within a city, not the regional model we have here, but within the city, they're saying, we're gonna get together folks who have that authority or authorization to say what positions they need, what budget they need, and spend and direct that budget in a certain way. That's their task force. So those are the three levels. Each has a contribution. That's how they spread the on the Philadelphia side. They went with a little bit different. They went with topical task force and committees. I don't know all 5 names right off, but we had one that focuses on safe users. There's a topical committee that focused on safe roads and speeds. Another that really focused on policy, and then also data. There's one more I just missed. So with those, what you basically are saying is we're probably going to need additional folks involved in order to do that. But you are putting your focus on a model where people kind of self-select, I can be part of the data committee because that is competency that I have, that's an interest that I have, that's availability I'm willing to commit. That model is, like I said, it's sort of like how the MPO has committees and roundtables right now for topical issues. It's not necessarily something where MAP is at right now. Our question is, as we look forward to the future, what is the feedback? And you can give feedback, kind of option A or option B using Menti. And then also we're going to have a little bit of space where I'm going to stop talking. And if you have thoughts on what is important about having a committee focus on making decisions that you want to just say aloud, or even questions you want to ask about it, now's your time. Okay. Yeah.
Does Philadelphia have any way to ensure that like they got people on those committees, like the community and
So, I mean, it makes sense, right? That your staff that are the leads putting together the plan, they will enlist volunteers to the committees. Now, I wasn't there and we don't have a very in-depth, kind of how they've been able to keep that up and what stay consistent, but generally speaking, their approach was, find the right folks, fit that committee, make sure that we don't.
And I'll just, let me just you. And if anyone ever visited Philadelphia, they have their past, where they're constantly updating, doing supplemental planning, and they've dashboards created. So it's very responsive, and that task force that they can play works very directly with directing it. So I know that's beyond this project, it's the recommendations, so it's the other ones that they similar. It's that way.
We want something that works. So, there are strengths and weaknesses to each of these, and there are things that we have to overcome. Philadelphia, the city, to some of the things we do, some of the data work that they do is been incorporated into our business. So, but yeah, this one's a really important part. This is what lets us turn plan into us.
Smaller city standpoint, it's gotta be. It's something we have to rely on. It's gotta be. BMT delivers, BMT level 1 the same scale. But it's gotta be. I don't know the bank, you're gonna be asking. Resources of the just. Yeah.
Good feedback, good discussion there. We're gonna go ahead and go back to our next topic, but yeah, again, be aware that that is definitely a major part of what we're what we're going to be recommending is how to advance policies and processes, determining if there need to be, changes in how we do this. So, here's the next aspect, safety analysis. Again, this is one of the easiest ones to help get across to people that, yes, the team that builds the plan up front will do safety analysis for you, but safety analysis is so much deeper, right? We're only able to scratch the surface and say, here's what the high entry network looks like, given the conditions we've had just recently with what's already knowable. And so a huge part of safety analysis going forward is understanding where others have had success in keeping it going and rolling it forward. So in Kansas City, that was a really good example. Again, Tim can probably talk to that one because that was the WSP project. In Louisville, our team worked on that one. This is the dashboard in Louisville that we're showing here over in Kentucky. The biggest thing that this helped with is because the dashboard is selectable to various locations, you would have folks that are project managers that are primarily focused on plan sets for, maybe this repaving project right in the middle of the program that don't, they haven't run a safety calculation in forever, but they are able to say, because they have a really easy tool, this safety is part of the conditions that are happening on this particular segment of roadway. That's my focus. And then they can bring that back to a team of resources that help them out in order to say, well, what should we do with our purpose and need for this project? Yeah, the need's kind of being driven by the fact that we need to repave here, but do we need to go back and really look at the data in order to make an adjustment and include in the purpose that safety is a top purpose for this improvement? Obviously, there are other benefits to safety data that aren't just in the engineering sense. That's one that I use, but if our public safety and enforcement officers know where there's specific trends for crashes, we can watch those locations more closely. We can train on exactly what should be done in order to address that. So data, or safety analysis, it's kind of built in the data. part of it's turning the data into something useful, another part of it's gathering a lot more useful data, and making it structured. And so Jim, I don't know if there's anything you want to add here.
Yeah.
What you guys are getting done in this.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit at our last committee meeting about that tool. That tool has changed completely, just due to a lot of really good improvements. Quantity and quality of data is important. So those of you that are associated with managing data or requesting data, we're looking for consistency. It's the Department of Transportation's crash data, we're bringing together Nebraska and Iowa, their standards. So we've learned a lot, but we have a ways to go as a region on data quality and quality. So we put the high priority effort out, and you're going to see these things, and we're going to say, boy, that doesn't look quite right. We're going to say, yeah, you are right. And we're going to work with it. So a lot of that comes to both. It's hard. It's a lot of information. We're just kind of transferring between standards, but really it's understanding why we're collecting that data, and then with that understanding, collecting the data, making it. We're very focused on this. Data team is going to come lab to meet us in a couple of weeks, and all of this is scripted. All of this is meant to be year over year pulling up the data using the same process. So the minute the data team is done, we as map players.
Thank you, Jim. So I've opened a new poll. This one's a little bit more of a, we want to understand the perceptions of our safety committee on data. Obviously, if there are things that our project team identified, you have to do this with the data, that'll still be in there, but your perceptions help because you guys are able to see the problem from your lived experience, which we don't. So on this one, it looks like we are starting to get the rankings. You know, people are definitely focused on the fatal and serious injury crashes and their frequency being probably the top data item. Looks like we're getting a little bit of a systemic angle up there on the high risk street creatures. Things that are a little bit low are traffic volume, you know, by all months. So again, it's good to know, you know, what the perceptions are, because again, that might help us to identify that one could be one that, you know, unless something changes, it may be difficult to make that an early win or an early change. Same thing with proximity to historically disadvantaged communities. At least right now, it's not getting a very high perception. So we're either going to have to modify how we explain its importance to you, or we have to, you know, recognize that there are other things that we might want to focus on. Anyone with kind of a big picture thought or comment on the safety analysis and data? Go ahead. Yeah, high-risk street features. That's a really good. So one of the kind of, I think, improvements that we've made in safety analysis recently is we have changed our focus from strictly the crashes being our focus, because when you do that, unfortunately, crashes in a statistical sense are rare. They're rare for finding with statistical tools. So a lot of times you're telling someone this corridor is really important because there has been one or two really serious crashes there, and its neighboring corridor has no crashes, and it's somehow not important. But if you look at what those two segments look like, they are actually very various. And in fact, potentially people are speeding at the same level. People have wide lanes. They may have, you know, a lot of volume, a lot of multimodal users. We're just seeing that the one corridor has a crash history, severe crash history, the other doesn't. But what systemic analysis does, lets us look at it a little bit higher level. It's kind of like how you do go to a doctor if you've broken your arm, but you also go to the doctor when you're looking to get your annual check and check for those vital signs, even though you don't yet have a very serious outcome. So that's really what we're talking about, high-risk crash features. I'm not naming any right now because Tim's going to tell me what they are later when he's getting into projects and strategies. But for now, just assume that we will denote some kind of risk factors, street risk factors in the board. With that, they will be mapped, so you'll know where they're present, even if there is.
No, we'll talk a little bit about the.
Is it?
Hello.
Yeah. We'll
Hi,
go to Zoom. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, this is Vicky Quates Ferris with the Empowerment Network. In terms of just kind of what I'm seeing, and I'm not able to really put my feedback in there, but in terms of the equity piece that you also focus on, even though the proximity of the historically disadvantaged communities didn't really rate high, I still believe that that should be one in which we do not set aside. Simply because then it appears from a perception of, well, it's not important to focus on those communities. And so I just want to make sure that we're not losing the focus of the equity piece, even though here we're not really seeing that it's rating high. But if we came out even today and show that, it would appear as if we're not really focusing on those communities.
Yeah, that is a really good observation there. And so I think one of the things that should be stated is that you can have values in the plan and the planning approach that are predominant, and they can still be low data. And so we will talk about equity and its importance to, really seeing meaningful change. And I think your comments will take in. And so I took it or assumed that we can take it as potentially we need to assume that our same views and values and equity need to be taken across the board, even if we don't have data suggesting that that's a safety area. But like I said, this is some input to the process. We will use all of those technical tools to make sure that we're not kind of being skewed too much to viewpoints and opinions.
Yeah. I have open as well saying that creativity, safety issues coincide with work on locations of those communities.
Yep. And if we're valuing the fatal and serious injury crash frequency and they coincide, then that's what we're going to spend, right? So that's good points. Julie? Yeah.
I might be misunderstanding safety data factors. Is there a reason like alcohol and driving is included there? Is that because they're normally included on all that? You gotta get into
No, you have a good point. There's even more safety factors than we listed here, and that's a good wonder base. Certainly that data can be a leading indicator. So we'll add that to this for sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think to add a little bit more to that, when we task the teams in the scope, the areas we wanted to focus on were these. Some of them because we have to have that 90-year anniversary, we have to have that crash. Injury information and frequency is the most representative. The vulnerable road user and kind of that proximity, that's something that we learned with the Department's presentations about road user safety assessments, and NDOTs in particular. In Nebraska, we showed just a very strong positive in a good way, but a strong positive relationship to those sites. People are being hit and killed in proximity to transit stops, to places of worship, to places of healthcare, wherever you expect more people. So that exposure, because we don't have that data measured as an audience, it's traffic. So yes, it's a subset of data factors. They're also the ones we asked.
All right. Appreciate everybody's feedback. We're going to keep moving just so we can hit all the topic areas. Talking about engagement and collaboration now, right? So this is a standard practice, and you might be wondering, well, how do you do that? Effectively, obviously, MAP's got a plan where we're going out to booths in the area where we're catching maybe folks who are not traditionally thinking about safety, and we're giving them, a quick update. Right? Maybe this topic is totally blind by what they're doing, and so we're getting their feedback on where there might be issues, and a chance to be a little bit more knowledgeable. Hoboken, New Jersey is one that has very successful outcomes. Again, it's a different style of community than Omaha, smaller, more transit oriented, and very, very good. But they have been doing this for longer, and so they have some things that have worked, right? So they have the Vision Zero pledge, we talked about it on the first one. Sometimes that's, in the leadership area. Here we have it kind of engaging everybody. They have this Vision Zero Ambassador program. Again, big opportunity for us to find folks, maybe with the neighborhood association or maybe with, trails, parks, who safety is part of their job anyway. And they're able to kind of add a little bit of material that's developed by this sort of program, and connect members of the community. And then, noting the traffic safety concerns in a place where we can continue to track it. Again, that's been a huge part of this. So, with the pledge, that was the one that we thought we'd be interested in what you guys think for who should be taking the pledge. So let me make sure that I can get that open so that you guys can respond to it. Oops. Okay. If you were thinking about who would be most important to encourage to take the pledge, what's your answer? We'll give this a minute to back. Right, seeing elected officials and members of the public kind of show up there. I mean, I think they go hand in hand, right? We can get folks who are prominent to take the pledge, and we think that that's something that we incorporate in this, then likely others will be influenced to take the pledge. All right, we're gonna make that one a little bit shorter feedback period so that we can keep moving. Don't want to cut off some of the really good feedback.
This is
Oh, go
Vicky
ahead.
again. If someone can maybe put in the chat what the pledge is again, because I'm just trying to see if we should have residents even take the pledge just to show some type of investment in their community and so on. But yeah, if you could maybe share the pledge again, that would be great.
Yeah. So one of the things I probably should have mentioned is that this deck, when it comes out, it's got loads of links in it. So you can go straight to the Vision Zero page with what Hoboken has offered as the Vision Zero pledge. Lot to do with, like I said, early in my safety moment, kind of safe behaviors, committing to make that a personal responsibility. And so I think for now, I'll just send it to you because we don't have it fully posted in these slides. So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. So again, we're moving through these, then I want to hit just at least a couple more. Equity, this is again, practices from other places can be very beneficial to how we incorporated this in the plan. Owen kind of hit on it in his comment earlier, right? We don't have to check the Omaha or the Napa area data very closely to know that there's going to be overrepresentation of fatal and serious injury crashes in historically disadvantaged areas. Why? Because it's structural, it's systemic, it's happening everywhere in the same manner. Just the types of decision making and philosophies that apply. It continues to happen no matter whether you're in Nebraska or if you're on the coast or if you're in. So that's going to be a huge part. What Minneapolis has done, and like I said, the link would explain it much deeper, but you can see this little map that's on there is that they have used data in order to basically tier how significant the risk is based on, an association of the safety data and those kind of socioeconomic indicators. So with that, they use some of it to help guide their engagement process, which is something that we have definitely been doing. They also use it as part of their, what's the highest need, what's the most important place to address a project or strategy to. So did really want to note here that MAPA has, again, some great spatial tools for equity. I don't know that we've got anything that's a sub-safety score to it yet until this project gets further along, but I think that that's a possibility, and you can use that link when we get this deck to you in order to check that. All right. I'm going to actually scooch us along just so we don't cut people off and talk about a couple more areas. So One of the other areas, and I've kind of said it a lot of times, but this policy and process change, I wanted to give some actual examples to the community that has used it as a guiding principle. So City County Denver is a really good example. They basically found in their high-risk assessment that school area locations was a huge focus. They were having some very major roads along community schools where it got serious engagement. And that's where they were seeing a ton of engagement that connected with the community wants to do to an even higher. So one of the things that Denver has done is that they've really addressed that kind of, programming around projects. They used to have a program where they focused on, this is how we're going to track number of bike lanes. This is how we're going to track the number of safe routes to school traffic calming projects nearby. But they've adjusted that sort of viewpoint, that lens, so that when they are putting together, an annual report, what's our progress? These are now key metrics that they focus. So as they're working throughout the year, they're having meetings, helping prepare to say, we've got to hit a target in their comprehensive safety action plan, X miles, X number of projects, and then they're coming back and so these are all kind of structural changes that they've made. And what it's led to is that they've been able to really increase the number of students who are caught up on, on safety, which is decreasing their risk, and also bringing in additional education side, more and more trained teachers. We have some similar areas where we're hoping to get your guys' feedback. And I'm gonna have to go over here and open this poll, but if you would tell us, oops, wrong one. Tab. Open up the You would go ahead and tell us what current safety practices do you believe need a greater focus and additional resources within the options we've offered, although you can also give it to other. Put it in other, really good if you mind if you put it in the chat or if you let me know what you think of theirs. See you guys' answers here shortly. First one that popped up for me was all right, starting to see more.
We're still talking about.
Yes. All right, got a widespread here, so good answers. Clean streets, construction measures. It's going to stay open while I'm talking on the next slide. So the foil to how we do business and change how we focus on safety is how does the public see it in investments in either projects or strategies. So this is an example of Philadelphia. Looking here, this is very graphically appealing plan, but one of the things that's really important to their project selection is that there is a specific kind of check, how many of them check the value that is acceptable. So, we're going to address this corridor with this strategy. Is it in the school area? Support efficient government? Does it build the bike network to make this a competitive city? So again, those values would be set differently for the map area and in progress, I think in all the engagement that's going in. But the goal is to connect those values back to the story. Don't score everything 100% on, like say, the technical BCA. But that's why we're going to encourage you guys to give us some input. And that input is, how do you want us to consider safety priorities? And we've added a few things here that I would say are maybe a little bit more on the kind of traditional cost benefit analysis side, and then some others that are a little bit more focused on some of the new things that are coming out with systemic safety and or safety action plans. Looks like you guys are able to get a jump on that one. Starting to see votes 8 above on the high priority networks. Looks like we have a lot of these other areas. Again, this information will be really helpful. And then one more I'm going to hit. I know I said I'd get to all 8, but I'm going to run out of time, so won't do that. To my colleagues, we have some good stuff to show. So, oh no, our shared transparency. So this is the last thing. You've heard me say it before, but one of the things that helps make sure that we don't really just buckle down, plan, come up with a few recommendations, never do anything with them, is set ourselves to be accountable from the beginning. So with that, you've got Louisville, Kansas City, all again. This one is from the so the biggest thing is by saying, this is how we're going to measure. You'll see if we've been doing a good job because, we just told you we got 0 miles in a year, right? There's accountability for how that stuff works. On the other hand, sidewalk, that's important to us, intersections with new back to us. Here's how we do it. So. It's just. Tab over. See if folks have thoughts on the communication of the progress. Communication guru.
I just wanted to know as well that if you think of something afterward, or you had Wi-Fi issues or whatever, this survey is still open, so you can go back and respond. So just know that. I'm gonna look like social media is transparent. I like that response. No. Can I do it now? Okay, community engagement update. So you guys have gotten kind of a high level view of what we've been doing in previous meetings. So since then, we've been out in the community quite a bit. We have done 7 engagement booths all the way from Crescent, all the way west to Gretna here later this month. So we've been really busy. We are planning on focus groups as our next big push. So I'll ask a question related to that here in a second, but we'll be out pretty much, feels like every week from here all the way through January, meeting with the community. So community survey update, you all are familiar with that. That was launched at the very end of July. We have 201 responses to date. Probably the most interesting thing that's come out of that so far is that respondents seem to associate roadway design to unsafe conditions, which is not typical for SS4As. So I think that's just something to notice. People who actually are designing roads, some of you in this room, people are very aware of that here in Omaha, which is a little different. So like I said, 201 responses, 275 safety concerns that are actually pinned on the map. Demographically, it's favored towards male, which I also think is an interesting statistics, depending on the type of crash, usually males are involved. And then demographically, primarily white. And then here's just who has taken our survey by zip code as a heat map, if you're interested in that. lots of East Omaha there. And then here you can see the cluster. This is actually, if you're interested, I can send you like the link to this map so you can zoom in a little bit better. But once again, clustered with East Omaha. So people are mostly concerned with safety at intersections, not just roadways. And mostly people are concerned as drivers, which maybe isn't super surprising because it's Omaha. Most people drive, but separately as a pedestrian as well. So as far as why people felt unsafe at the specific location that they identified, primarily it was speeding, red light running, and then I believe the third one in there is distracted driving. Those are all driver behaviors, just for everyone's awareness. So I think someone earlier mentioned why we didn't have more behavioral things in one of John's question, which is a great point because that is what people are concerned about. And then again, just to reiterate, roadway and intersection design were a concern as well. So I talked a little bit about the engagement booths. We have done 7 already. We have 2 planned. The next one's actually this weekend in South Omaha. And then we're going to go to Vista here in October. And the yet to be scheduled actually changed today. We think we're going to be in Granite later this week. So one of the questions that we asked from the community survey was, what safety issues do you want addressed? Or excuse me, in the engagement booth. So I was actually hoping that everyone could get back on the Mentimeter and take this with me and we can kind of compare the results. So I will ideally switch. Okay. There we go. What safety issues do you want addressed? Ideally, just as a user of our roads, sidewalks. Right. Yes.
My position, I have the privilege to take community concern. A lot of them are particularly around the east areas. Primarily, one example is that age areas. So I guess one of the things that I question personally is how do we design things like that in mind of thinking of what is going in these areas and who's and how we come to if there's no stop sign, no devices, no anything in that area. So professionally, it's hard for me to answer some of those questions because I'm not an engineer, but I am someone who stakeholder in the realm of crash investigation and crash restriction. So, you know, those things are also important to me, and I guess I don't have an answer for those people. They call, but just a way to direct some of their concerns where they feel like maybe they have some skin in the game after the way is designed and some way to move forward and addressing their concern that there's not be hit by water because we can't be everywhere. So one of the things I guess I would like to see too is some schools get more involved with the ownership of they sometimes want us to solve the problem of personnel being at every intersection that a child is from. And we would love to be there. Personally, want to be there every morning, but the reality is, so having some of those conversations within the school of how to get those folks to take some actual steps for themselves, making some of those areas safer, giving them some of those tools, maybe, you know, that's part of some of what we talk about here in these groups of how to get ownership back and empower them to take some steps.
there's a couple of really interesting threads in there. I might touch base with you after this meeting, because I'd be curious on like how you're tracking some of those community concerns and maybe how we can get some of that data as well. And then as far as schools specifically, so I mentioned our focus groups. We're planning on meeting with like an education association or something that's specific to schools. I don't know if you have a good contact. Again, I want to talk to you for this meeting because I think we should. So those are good comments. Thank you. If anything to add.
Really quickly, so you participated in one of our meetings with Western Circuit Transportation Enhancement Plan. I'd say that's probably the closest in the meetings last week with the different communities that so how do we design ahead of time, especially with roadways that span jurisdictions or start in one jurisdiction, eventually become part of another? How do we do that? I think we're starting to do that. Start thinking. I think that would be another part of this plan. In our workshop, we said, what they call it, safer design. So instead of just safer, but how do we get ahead? So I think your comment, I think that's really relevant to.
And just a comment, so your top two choices were reckless driving and speeding vehicles, and so was so far everyone at our engagement booth. So I think that is a good thing that we're all on the same page for some of these issues. The last question that we want to ask is, how safe do you feel on these modes of travel on Mentimeter? So if you could just one more time, pull out your phone and take it. And then I'll share the results from our engagement booth. Got 13, so I'm just going to move to the slide, and then this is our results. So I think it tracks a lot of people that we're talking to. They're like, well, I don't bike or take the bus, but those who did, you'll notice that the unsafe feeling is weighted heavily with the biking community. And then people felt a little bit more neutral on buses and walking, and then felt more safe driving. But I still think, given some of our responses, that there's a lot to be addressed there. So as I mentioned, we will be doing community presentations, focus groups. Not all of those have been defined yet. We have some of them, but we're leaving it open for comments like yours, for maybe we need to address through a focus group or something like that. So we have a couple of people already identified, and I did lie. There is actually one more Mentimeter question. If you could just one more time, pull out your phone and tell us who we should be meeting with so we can have that documented. And I will not even switch back to the Menti. I'm going to finish up my presentation. Here's the map. This will keep getting updated. I believe it was presented at the last safety committee meeting. I wasn't here. So just kind of show geographically that we're trying to spread the love across the Omaha region. With that, I will give it to him.
Thank you, Ross. Yeah. I think we answered that question.
Please do. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I'm saying the meeting that we were at, I think that we answered the questions that specific organizations. Was that? Did you guys make contact with people?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So in some ways, yes, some of those were organizations that are doing outreach. Those were some of our partners we're bringing in. But to answer your question, that we have got, I can check. So we reached out. But we'll definitely follow up.
Awesome. So I'm going to close this up, and I have 3 slides. I'm going to show you the platform that's being developed. Some of you have already seen some of this, and we had a lot of these slides very particular to your community. We're going to get more in the weeds on the data as it keeps coming in. But overall, this is 170 people have died on our roads in this region in just 5 years. with 1,200 fatally or seriously injured. And the next one, if we look by Mo, luckily, no bicycles have died in the mountain region in the 5 years that we're studying, but many of them have seriously injured pedestrians, big problem as well. Overrepresentation for VRUs, they usually make up 1 to 2% of our mode share, but they're making up close to about 12% of overall fatal and serious injury share, right? Overrepresentation by group. And then these are the types of crashes. This is just fatal and serious injuries. So left turn related, that would be red light running, taking the turn when you shouldn't have, misjudging that gap. So those types of crashes are the highest. And you probably saw, I had brought up, I want to respect everyone's time, but this is the piece that's the most exciting that Jim alluded to. I'll kind of demo it. And some of you have already seen this platform, but our partners at High Street, who are coming out later in the month to really get our hands on this and really make it to what we want. And this is the discussion that I want to have is how can we make this most useful? So just to show you what's kind of going on here, what you're seeing up here is what we're calling the high priority network. So high priority network is a combination of 3 things. It's historic injuries that have happened. So we did that, the question that John asked of should we look at fatal and serious injuries, or should we look at predictive analytics, right? How the road is unsafe inherently. We know the relation, like four lane undivided roads, high degree of correlation between fatal and serious injuries on those types of roadways. Even though one hasn't happened there, we know that we could predict that one might very likely. So there's the retrospective piece, is the crashes that have happened. There's the predictive piece, and then we have the community survey, which is where do people feel most unsafe when they're going online to take our survey that we're sending out. We're taking their input in and we're giving that a weight as well. And that's how this network is developing. And again, this is a draft. We are dialing in on how to weight each of those, the attributes within each of the high injury network being created, the retrospective analysis, as well as the predictive, looking at those attributes. What's really cool about this tool is the functionality to use it now for your community. So for example, let me get my mouse over here. Pretend we're in Bellevue. And you're like, well, I want to look at my specific community. And shoot, I think I picked the one community that's always an edit, but let's go Papillion. I want to look at Papillion. I think we ran into that problem the other day too. But now all of a sudden, all the data will update for Papillion. And so the rest of the roadway network, high priority network goes away. And now, the numbers on the right kind of look a little weird, but they'll get updated. Everything's, again, draft. But all of a sudden, you'll get information within, I don't want to say live, but MAPPA is going to be able to update this year after year, where you can use this and know what the most recent crash data available is being processed and put in here year after year. So right now we have 2018 to 2022. But going forward, 23 will come in as that's done being processed, 24, and so on. And so you're able to make decisions for the community most reason as possible. And so, what else we have are, and the formatting is a little weird because of the screen share, are filters. And we'll have a tab up here of pretend I'm not a police officer, but pretend I want to look at alcohol enforcement in my community, and particularly look at corridors where I can do isolated enforcement events on a certain time of day. And so I want to see that high priority network that's related specifically, that has a high correlation with alcohol related crash occurrences. We can turn on that toggle, and all of a sudden it gives you the intersections, and that's what the crosses are, sorry. The little plus signs are the intersections, and then the blue lines are the segments. It gives you all the intersections and segments that have a high correlation with alcohol-related crashes. A really powerful tool that we're updating constantly, High Street is, I'm not. And they're putting this together, and I guess some other capabilities that we have in here is to look at unrestrained, pedestrian type, bicycle, and we're looking at different functionality between speed. Maybe you want to look at just arterials. You could look at functional class, you know, or you just want to look at local roads. You know, that's maybe the enforcement effort you want to do or something. Maybe how many through lanes. I only want to look at, you know, 4-lane undivided. Show me the most unsafe 4-lane divided. Things like that. We have a post-crash care feature coming. We're getting more data in. So for the last 3 minutes, I kind of want to just open up. If anyone has questions about this, but I also want to hear ideas. What are we missing? Available to you? 2025? I don't know. Soonest?
So we're gonna close out that community input survey into the 27th of this month, so that's still moving. I talked about those roadway characteristics. So the roadways and waiting things we need to look at in QC. But I think that the crash data is there, that those jurisdictions are there. I consultant, but I think when we come to our safety committee and TTAC, give you a better answer. That would be
That speeding toggle would be great as well for you.
I mean, if the crash, we don't have a crash, we get every.
Yeah, I definitely want to give the team a chance to clean it up, so we're not taking actions. Maybe it overlooked, but
Relatively soon.
yeah, relatively soon. And what you're seeing is consistent with the same thing that was kind of sheriff's office. And I think that we want this tool to support what you're doing. So yeah, for echoing.
Yeah, question, is there anywhere that the data current?
Yeah, that's it. Yep. That's a great point. We'll find a way to make it so. And Tim and Jill splash page in front of which you can instruct. So we'll be more. It would be cyclical. And again, we're going to need help getting the latest data in there to make good decisions and analysis.
At the same time, you know, I think we might have discussed it, but to be able to look at certain use, essentially do your own studies. You know, maybe you put out stocks shelter. You're like, well, what happened? You can just do it.
I think that could be used for, so the market midtown bike was just removed. And, you know, the safest corridor in the urban area or cyclists, right? And have a plan in place, but it's not for 4 years. Maybe the staff argue to have a replacement put in place while waiting for the permit.
It's your tool, you can start.
Two quick comments. One, so like issue and more of a user friendly issue. There's some way, and it was probably money, but you want to know this? You figured out like something.
Yeah.
To navigate this. And then the second thing I want to put is CYA. We were giving a presentation, and I know that the data is not.
Yeah.
We're saying that's not. Just to clarify that.
Yeah, very specific to evidence point of this
This is
Yeah.
national data. This is specifically this one. Yeah.
Be able to get behind the net and environments.
Say that one more time.
Would you be able to, will users be able to get behind the net of custom environments?
I mean, you can talk, so like you can do any amount of toggles you want with the platform right now. Now, I don't know if your question is leading to this, is there gonna be an export feature of the data? The map question, I don't know.
Don't know, but our goal would be the tool would do 95%. If you want to do it, if somebody finds a need. So,
Impact my mind. This data, budgeting issues. Each. Forward.
yes, I understand what you're saying. I think, there's a summary of that roadway mileage in the upper right, but it's not, it's a presentation, it's not. Yeah, we'll look at, yes, how can we workshop?
Maybe Facebook,
Yeah, exactly.
All right, again, last comment question.
Please.
You get
The data. So all of the crash data is coming from Nebraska DOT and Iowa DOT. So Iowa would be ICAPS, and then Nebraska DOT would work directly with that. Again, this is High Street, the other consultant that's on this. The roadway characteristic data, the predictive type stuff will work, I think with multiple parties.
There are, and that's the hard one. So a federal highway requirement is the data source of highway performance management system, HPMS. And that has historically been the highways state manages that data. There's going to be a requirement by 2026 that each state has safety related roadway characteristics available.
Should be done shortly.
Especially in
Larry.
Yep, the metro. And Larry, you want to jump in on roadway characteristic data? Yeah, please. All right.
Sorry, Jim, I can't quite understand what you're saying.
So we're talking about DOT progress towards the Meyer in 2026.
Larry, if you have anything to add, your guys' progress with that data, feel free.
Okay, at this moment, I don't, sorry.
No, that's good. But we did back, there is an online, so there's traffic signal location data and information from the city of Omaha. There's some additional NDOT data that's going into a safety analyst tool that's already kind of been preformed. So it's coming from a lot of different places. Our goal of that is to just get it on the HPMS as soon as possible, so that it's being used in all other applications and it's in one consistent format. So we don't spend a lot of time.
Thank you for your time. Anything else, Jim, you want to add on that?
For all the questions, thanks for being with us. We appreciate the opportunity to come into the communities. Sometimes that comes with it. So thanks for your input. If you have anything else, definitely Safe Streets and Maverick, it's going to get it to another of us. So if that's we'll take look forward to seeing you in the summer. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.